To see you all here tonight.
Yeah. That in las. Da karışıyorsun da. Tadini maranzo ta kasore 창마 대화도 동에 만동에 장자래도요. 제가 대화다 동에 산디 디도디 아니 kasore 다가 규매바다 게매바 규매 게매 드레진의 연구요 말. 제가 먼저 대화 되나 대외 유대 컨디션에도 가능 연구도 어디 디시바체 디 대외 교도 두비나 대화 연구요래. 동해 만들비 인사 동해의 컨디션 연구도 어디 그 윤의 연구요래. 교대 컨디 연구도 깨로 컨디 연구도 디시에 관해 엔티파 방향나 동해 연구요 말. 제가 디두스한디 나란주다 비게 커서래. 대화도 동해 만들베래. 제가 디 용야기 특징 나란주다 거네 So
we're all the same from the point of view that we wish to be happy. We don't wish to have any sufferings or difficulties. From that point of view, we all have one wish, which is to be more happy and to remove difficulties and remove sufferings. And if we ask, well, does happiness and does suffering, does it come about for no reason, or does it come about for a cause? Is there a reason why we experience happiness or suffering? Then the answer is that there is a cause, there's a reason. Our happiness depends upon causes and conditions, and our unhappiness, our suffering, comes about due to causes and conditions. Therefore, if one's looking towards being more happy, to having more satisfaction and happiness, and one's looking towards removing or lessening suffering, then again, what you need to do is look in what is the cause, what are the conditions, the causes and conditions that lead to happiness, and what are the causes and conditions which leads away from suffering. And if you put those causes and conditions into practice, the ones that lead to happiness and the ones that take away or reduce suffering, then that's how happiness is achieved, or the removal of suffering is achieved.
England. 아니 당 배팅도 한만만 다 보면 거 근데 야게 친들 봐 딘데래 돼요. 야게 친이 친주된데서 뭐네 타네게 배시라게 야고 강토를 뭐네 타네게다 야게 친이 소베다 미 직코요래 다가나시 아니 지 비게 가서래 파준 짐들이 강토를 배 야게 친도요 하래. 제가 야게 친 받은 거는 고게 요래. 이내야 먼저 디기 산디 아니 다치 디기다 나선 거 디기니 요봐. 니가 고고요래. 대난에做的 가려서나 아니 치 디기디 개첨버리디 대난 做的 생기 디기도 고고요래. 상부당당토네. 제가 상부당당토네 디기 고야 가려서나 치 디기 배표선 소버체 다做 변조를 봐. 변조 토네 배강 배등문에 타네게 표선 소버 이양타고 이어 봐. 딘데 밑에서 동해시 미션달에 쳐 봐. 강에 현달 쳐 문에 타네 딘데 때 두고 한도가 딘데 가라 토소. 제가 배등년배년배는 신하지 딘데 요래. 제가 다디 치 디기다 변조다 디기기 난그생 디기디 비게 가서래 동해 시기는 배 디기 소투고요 말에 제가 나섬산디 고 생비 디기 샘토네 삼려토네 어다 디기 용도 소나고 여름.
So So Rinpoche is now here, has come to England, and what is very clear, and what we all experience and know, that England is a very developed country, that we're a country which, for a long period, in fact, in our history, is very materially developed. That we've, for various reasons, including the interaction we've had with the rest of the world, England is a very materially advanced or developed country, and has been for some time. But when you think about just material advancement, or just the external types of stimulus-driven happiness or pleasure, it's very clear. You can see that alone is not enough to bring happiness to someone. Rinpoche himself has met people, and I'm sure we all met people that have incredible wealth and happiness and materially very, very well off, and very, very have everything they need from that point of view, but yet are not happy, and yet have experience, and it's clear that they have internal happiness. So when we look at those two areas of happiness, external stimulus-driven happiness and internal happiness, then it becomes clear with this explanation that out of the two, the inner happiness is much more important than external happiness. And if you're really looking for well-being and for happiness, then that's where you need to look, rather than the external conditions.
我觉得被气变着当第哪个生个东西是一个能突过嘛？他可啥的，可能是对吧？他听个吧，怕是他变着什么忙过有吧？听个吧，我让听的突呀忙不穷。哦，当我呢，他那个我了变着有我有，他妈的他改没事，他改没。当我忙鸟不起，他鸟不差用的，他肯定过人吧？他嘞，听的起被他说了些啥过？被这个刚刚有问的我太用，加上。气变着给气第一十年的，我第一七三月呢，哪个生活东西的出十几年突过嘛的，但是呢，哪个生活团呢，比生活第一十年的生活三路当团呢，还快不起呢，两个还快你些呢，你别那不行呢，说不哪啥，他别旅哪啥那东西有了吧？他那些这边说他看到年过去，从头是点面的话，参照被刚也点嘛，被他妈娘出来，参照也别个点没得话的吧？这的哪个生活团呢？你别个我有你自己那当中现些个生活团呢，别个大几个团呢，你别个可说了，说不难个，没忙过有呢，点那个没讲什么几个嘛嘞。我现在生活习不下去，别可少了，说不别买哪里个天天赢的几个赢的，哪个几个赢的，天哪呢？生活习生活习的马拉不是这个样的。大家那些去变着团呢，这，他从一年的，然后大家那些米上去拿去看到，他们这从一年的，还是从一年，生活别乱些的呢，生活习的马拉不是，我得了第一天的样的，我天天样的，
So again, we're all aware of that. We come from a society which is materially developed. We can see that material development or external happiness alone doesn't guarantee or doesn't mean that we have the internal happiness. In fact, the way it is that you can see that someone can be very wealthy. And again, Rinpoche has met people, and we all know people, or maybe are people who have materially everything we want, but don't necessarily experience happiness inside ourselves. The way that it works is that yes, we do need a certain level of material needs. We have material wants, and there's things that we need, but that alone doesn't guarantee internal happiness. In other words, the external factors don't necessarily mean that one's internally happiness. If you take it the other way around, though, if you look at whether internal happiness, whether bringing peace and happiness into the mind can actually affect external things, then on the other way around, it's much more obvious that it can do. For example, if you're sick, if you have various types of disease or sickness, people react and live with those things in very different ways. Some people can be quite sick and quite unhealthy, but yet keep a very happy mind and be quite happy in themselves and content. And other people can suffer quite seriously, but internally. So you can see that the difference internally can overcome, in fact, the external things a lot more than the other way around. So if you ask which of those two things is more important, then it's clear that the inner happiness is much more important, or weighs much more heavily on your happiness than the external one.
Yeah, 지나서 기킨 거 봐. 시 변조 치중 라면도 거시 변조 전부 거시 변조 중 그렇게 배좀 매봐. 라면다 단에 된수 인데서 뭐 거시 변조요 뭐 군대도 다들 동구도 아 여러 봐. 어디 나시 난겠으면은 가시 뭐네 단에 추고 배등만에 단에 되기 싫어요 이게. 가시 매번 거시 방고다. 뭐네 단에 지금 미기 통구요 말씀 미기 통구 말 와. 어딘데지 찍어요 그래.
So again, we see people, we come across people all the time who have everything they need materially, and yet still don't have the happiness within their minds. And then you also come across the opposite, which is people who have very little things, or very poor, have nothing materially, and yet are rich in internal happiness, and therefore experience a lot of happiness. So you can see from that the external, the material, again, stimulus-driven or external pleasures are not the main factor when it comes to our happiness.
Yeah, what is it? What is it? That in it. Tangaranzo Piggy Didu Sandy. Ale Nanguecho Chebina and Tawa Dinjung da Joba Savame Shigure, Sunger Nanguecho Nala. 다 이내야 네 순간 낭괴체 송부티티 최께서 자원을 해요 말에디 최연엔다 매낸다 따바 그 딘중사디 딘중이 임베 되는 줘봐 지지 떠고야 돼 저바 디비게 잠바데 잡아 고야 될 저바 차와 매버스기요 래 디베디 여러 부 저바 레디요 래 어때 디 최께서 자원을 말해
So from a Buddhist what we talk about in terms of our philosophy or our view on how to live one's life, it contains two main things, which is the philosophical view of interdependence, that everything depends upon each other, that there is interdependence between all phenomena, and then the behavioural view, which is that not to harm others or not to do things which hurt or harm other people. And those two views really are not just a Buddhist philosophical view. They're the way, they're reality. They're the way things are, whether one talks from a Buddhist point of view or not. It is reality that not harming others is a positive, beneficial thing to do. And it is reality also that things are interdependent, that things are that depend upon each other. So those views are not just the Buddhist views, they're how things are.
Yeah, on this. Da Dinjung Sandy da Kasore. ngaranzo digi di nang digi semjing digi di chi ani pigi koyul 뜨고 요래 칠 뜨고 요래 떠버래 다가는 시 ngazo 메소스 게르게 digi di 신날 떠버래 떠봐 등고에 내주 삼노다나 신야래 등산 체리 토네 어디 대가란 레송도 와 제자 지기지길 떠네 될 떠네 아니 고 비기 디기사한테 맞아 두야 디기디 텔레톤이 연구를 마도 떠봐 매버체 가요 말에.
So if you think firstly about that view of interdependence, then it's very clear, not just from a Buddhist point of view again, but also from a modern scientific point of view, that our inner happiness, the happiness of ourselves, doesn't depend just upon ourselves alone. Rather that it's dependent upon other people around us and other factors, especially other living beings. Dependent upon those other living beings, we generate happiness or become happiness in ourselves. It's not that we stay in isolation and therefore can generate happiness like that. So we're dependent. We depend upon others, and our happiness depends upon others.
뭐야 어디세? 어디세? 딱 간다. 아니 가서 오래다. 다 간다. 또는 줘봐사대. 될 때니 딘데 연구 여봐대. 배낭 알아서 김장으로 지금 나려야 아니 섬이 핀수 사상 되게 여러 봐 사상 되게 하디 디기 된다래 디기 마도 동은 되는 수치 되게 말아 봐 제장 아니 비게 가서래 다 디기 되네 아니 김상 되고래 디니 단디 가서래 김상 디기 유한디 단다 빼는 사상을 비시나 비게 지기 디기 유한 지질 떠요 여러마도 떠버래 단다 켜가 달래 디기 유한디 디게면 될 뜨고 알아 게면디 디기 유한디 켜가 떠버래 딩이 간다 디데스 떠네 되네 보고 유나 보고 부도 유나 보고 부도기 디기다 동해사도 가르선데 빠바 아만 떠네 파말 떠네 연구요라고 파말 떠네 그 디기 유한디 연구 동해 유한디 두스 연구요 봐 대선자 뭐 내려 떠네 engadu kasa titu sada digi sade tinde sungo yare o digi ndene ko te tibu yinza digi sade yong dongin sade oda teltene to sungo yo te shengo.
So you can see this very clearly in the example of a family, that the individual members of a family depend upon each other for their happiness. So if the husband's happy, that depends upon his relationship with the wife. If the children in the family are happy, it depends upon their relationship and how things are with their parents. You can see within that family unit that the happiness of individuals within that unit depends very much upon the other individuals. So as I said, children depend upon the parents and parents depend upon each other. Again, that shows you how the dependence of people upon each other reflects their happiness.
제가 다 딘데스 제제 어다 가래서나 나란조다 김상직이 nen다 어다 디디기디 어다 다가 그 가서 때 뜨는 종을 김상네 다 그다음에 이 가서 통조를 지나 통조 디기디 찌질 뜨는 연구로 봐 연구 여비 인상 아니디 가서래 뜨는 주바 인바 디 인신민지가 뜨는 주바 인바 현고 그래 죄송해요. 뭐야? 어디 뚜뚜디 개천부 시다래. 실질 떠네 비게 연구 여바디 비게 가서 오래. 개천부 시다래. 어디디 떠네 연구 여바. 강가 떠네 주구 여바디 비게 삼담이나 삼담 전에 미 엔비게 삼 가천으로 구양로 그래. 배 선바 구양로. 단디 지당 비게 뚜뚜 땡데 털 삼담 인시나 ngôi này rồi xong tam bị insan chế bên mi khui ăn đồ đấy, xong mà giá钱đồ rồi đấy, đi钱đồ rồi, ông thôi chứ nào.
So this whole concept of things being dependent upon each other, as we've said, are you hearing me all right? Is that okay? Can you hear me? Yeah? Hang on. I didn't say anything. Can you hear me? Is that better? Yeah, okay. So this concept of things being dependent upon each other, or interdependence, as we've just shown in an example of a family, that it's worth contemplating, considering how the individuals in a family unit depend upon each other, and the fact the happiness of those individuals depends upon each other. And in general, this whole concept of how we are dependent upon everything and how everything which exists is interdependent like that, is something you should contemplate and consider more and more deeply, because the more you consider it and the more you think about it, the more open your mind becomes, the more expansive your mind becomes, and the more relaxed and more content you're able to be. So this whole concept of interdependence is a very important thing to contemplate and to try and bring into your daily thinking.
뭐야? 어떻게? 다 가나 어다 딘데스 비 뜨는 줘봐 지지 때는 연구거디 셈비나 나란조다 쭉 셈제스는 미 디기디 고유 내용 제가 고유 숨겼다 다나시 김사지가 나라 비게 지지 때는 디기디 연구위에서 아니 지지가 자와 쳐로야 오 간다 간거 통하네 비게 뭐이 니즈데 렘바시 연구야 도시.
So again, the reason why that sort of is so important is, as we said, that an individual, a person, is dependent upon the people around them. We don't exist in isolation. We exist in dependence upon those people. And just as we said, in a family, the happiness of individuals within that family depends upon how they relate to each other and whether they're good to each other or bad to each other, etc. So that situation of interdependence is very important in terms of how whether we're happy or not in our lives.
뭐야? 다 제가 먼저 비게 가서 그래. 아니 뭐란도 다 간다 디기 짜버려디 투서디 참바다 짜와사디 참저스거도 이용 그 참바다 짜와사 다 짜와 니치 뭐주는 짜바테서 짜와 어디 용과 겸세 가래서나 비 랑기 디기다 동에 간가 뜨는 주바인바 뜨는 주바 어다디 뜨는 주바인바 현라 때는 용구여봐 어디 겸생게 안비게 참바다 잡아서안디 가래서나 참제여나 디기여래 디기 용구여봐 랑 디기 용구 어떻게 김산지 난 디기 용구여봐 제가 참제사디 투서디 가와토 그래서나 뭐이 내주 쭉 내주를 돼 뭐이 내주 그게 찍을 때는 용 뚜뚜 때를 두고요 도잖아
So when we think about what is it, from a Buddhist point of view, what is it, what emotions or what feelings is it which bring happiness, then we clearly see that these two, especially love and compassion, are very important, are very vital factors in creation of our own happiness. Now, why are they so important? Because of this understanding of interdependence. What is the philosophy or the reason why love and compassion are so important? Not just because we call them that, but simply because showing love towards others, showing compassion towards others, reflects back on ourselves. Why? Because we're interdependent with other beings. So the philosophical position that we are interdependent, that we relate and we depend upon others, is the reason why we say from Buddhist point of view that love and compassion are so important. Because the love we give or the compassion we show or generate towards others is important because we depend upon those others, because we're interdependent with those others. So that's the sort of logical reason behind love and compassion being so important.
뭐야, 어떠잖아. 어디체. 다 제가 충사알레 김산식에 나네. 비게 김산 나네 삼당고요. 그래서나 비게 단다. 아니 김산식에 나나 파마 부루이나 아니 파메 토네. 아니 부글이야 참바자와 그제는 콜레 부글 되게 연구요. 되게 어디만 임바체 아니 파메 토네 부글이야 비게 콘로다. 즉 다가서 콘 비게 셈 콘로왕도 소나 마주부 연구요. 저봐 안베 저봐 독자 연구를 비게 어디 대송자 비게 동해 연구요. 동해 어디 셔바체 자산 네 제비나 바로 동해 연구요 봐. 어디 랑게 비게 가르서 다 가르서나 제당 될땐 동행이 어디 시에버체 어디서 인상 아니 대반 누구요 동행 누구요 아마 대송 인상에 뒤에는 되기면도 비게 인지 민지게 아니 비게 참석 고도 디기 거발라 어디를 삼았다고 부부 털이네 다가나시 사산 편수인비네 아니 비게 다 편수 참바다 잡아 찌기 참석 그제 예외이네 바로를 디기 연구요 라인 디기 연구요 바로 갖다 파조 발을 디기 연구요 어디 송인장 디 연구요 어디 랑게 토네 비게 심 모티베이션엔다 또 어때 비게 당 가서 디나 녀모시다래 콘도 셰비나 콘도 셰마송 어디인데 셰비나 바로 벌 아니 식주다 다가난시 르마 저버 독자 통연도상 바로 동해 연구요 어디서 인자 바로 디기 누구요 동해 누구요 말에 제가 다 딘데 셰비 저버 될 때는 동해 연구요 될 때는 갈 때는 비게 동해 연구도 비게 동해 누구 말에 동해 누구요 말에 삼바 니토네 찌찌 때베 뚜뚜 디토네 삼당고요
And so again, if you think of the interdependence within a family, then it's very clear that if a parents, if parents can show love, kindness towards their children, then the children become happy. They grow up mentally sound and mentally happy if they're shown love and compassion, or love and kindness. Whereas if they're shown anger, if they're shown unpleasant behaviour from their parents, then the reverse is true. Then they end up not being so happy. They end up unhappy and not well, not sound in their minds as they grow up from that. So you can see again from that the children depend. The happiness of the children depend upon the parents and the way that the parents are towards them. And this is the same not just in families, but for all of us in all the interactions we have with people. That you can see that if you show kindness, if you show love towards others, that brings happiness, not just to them, but to yourself as well. And the reverse, that if you show anger and unpleasantness towards others, then it causes others to behave in bad ways, or to feel unhappy, to not feel so happy. And that reflects on them, and it reflects on you as well. So again, it's interdependent. The way that you show to others, whether it be kind or whether it be unkind, causes a reaction, causes unpleasantness in them, and it causes unpleasantness in yourself. And you can see that whole relationship is an interdependent one, and that your behaviour towards others causes either happiness or unhappiness in them, and also unhappiness or happiness in yourself.
我的确，家长比强制性的，那我让做第一个早把的，家长김장这个拿了，这个强制可在吃不完呢，被可在强制的情况光不过有的，强制原的写不过呢，我强制的光不呢，光骗呢。甚至别个强制人性判用着呀，我听得晓得。大看到别个可说的，我让做没上过的没眼巴晓得多啊，没上过生意的，别个刚个了解就样的强巴的这把可这些人没了解过用，没也不自由的，没也不生意的，别个可说的刚刚听不用呀。병원에 다는 미 약보사야 돼 다가다 미 약보다 두자산디 미 미리 토네 샤기요 말에 다가나시 포도 몇 토네 샤기요 말에 미수부 탄단다 아니 비게 가사라 다 지금 내가 딘데 토네 샤면 디가르스나 셈 비게 상보 셈 상보사야디 참제랑 시지나 미상보스 오도 샤기요래 오 미상보데 가바이네 딱 고고 참바래야 돼요.
So again, you can see then that within a family or within individuals that the root within the Buddhist presentation of where happiness comes from this love and compassion, comes from being a kind, being a compassionate or loving person, and that mental factor or that mental ability to be kind or to be compassionate is not something which is fixed. It's something which you can develop. It's something which you can become more and more habituated towards. And in fact, the more you try and habituate yourself with it, the more you try and grow it or develop it, the stronger it becomes. And you can develop to almost unlimited extent. You can develop this mental ability to be compassionate and kind. And then, if you think generally in the world what we think of as being a good person or a kind person, someone we look up to, someone we respect, you can say very clearly that it's not dependent. Being what we say is a good person doesn't depend upon whether one's race. It doesn't depend upon whether one's male or female. It doesn't depend upon where you are, whether you're tall, whether you're small, whatever. All those doesn't depend on all those things. We call someone a good person or someone who's respected or someone we look up to or see as a good person from their inner qualities, of kindness and compassion. Not from any other type. So our judgment or our seeing someone as being a good person depends upon those inner qualities of love and compassion.
我呀，我都讲了。다들 캐나서 배지 망제 생 요바 참바다 잡아 참바산디 신 대화 된도 라이 대화 된도 신 탐제 대화 되고 요래 대화된 demban 되베 셈들 참바스 요래 되네 라이 동인 되고 요마 신 강 수지 동인 되고 오다 동인 면도 없이 동인 대답 제로 잖아 섬 동의를 대반대 잡아들 잡았어요. 잡아 니침부터 섬지 탐제 제비나 오디 딩인부터 당가도 백 쉽지 개침버려. 디기 잡아래.
So again, the root of happiness in ourselves is really comes down to those two things, which is love and compassion. Probably most of you already heard this before, but when we're talking about what is love and what is compassion, then love really is this wish for others to be happy. It's the wish or the desire, may they be happy, may others be happy. And compassion is more aligned with the wish of may they not suffer, may they not experience different types of suffering. So those two fundamental principles within Buddhist teachings can be described or in those terms.
어떠잖아. 다디 비게 참바다 잡아 용야라 비게 무슨 내가 칭인티. 무슨람서 크든 내가 칭이나 가르서나 셰당 쓰기요래. 콘도 쓰기도 와 셰당 콘도 쓰기디. 대 크도 거라. 남양 내가 깨든 내가 칭이 될라야. 다 셰당 쓰기요래. 제가 셰당 쓰기인데 컨디션에서나 비게 셰당 쓰기 수익을 깨비네. 알랭엘 셰당 깨발랭엘야 이마데게 간다 김제로 같이 이마데게도네 란네 차레 란 동이 중차레 되네 델리단도 비게 셰당 쳐쳐침비나 오네 다네 배드마 기었어 랑에 담보야 랑게 비게 생비 디기도 봐좀 샤고요 어디제 단도 베디잖아 다시 난 싱거를 봐 콘도도 가라서 하고 봐 콘도까지 전부 잖아 잘라간 거 매고서야 셴은 나밖에야 랑신이 분승이티 탐제 나밖에니 어디 손자 셰당 때라야 맞아 다음만 쓰기요 맞아 지나잖아 비기 디기 중에 뭐 내주 제비나 맞아 내가 친이 뭐한테 내가 친인데 다 쓰기요 봐 내가 친이 뭐한테 셰당데 콘도데
So if we ask what's the enemy or what is it which harms most our development or our feelings of love and compassion, then it's clear that anger or hatred is the real enemy of those things. We can see clearly on our own minds that when anger arises, initially when anger comes up, it disturbs your mind. It makes the mind disturbed, unhappy. And you can see also that the more we allow anger to take us over, the more damage it does. The more unhappy we become inside ourselves, and eventually if you become really angry, then you start to break things or you start to harm people and you start to do crazy actions out of that. So if you look at what really, where is our true enemy, then it comes down to this internal anger and hatred which we generate in ourselves. That's the thing which harms our love and compassion, and also harms us, disturbs us in other ways as well.
Yeah. 어디선가 먼저 디난다 디데선 시당 숭을 참나 시당 숭우스다 숭우스는 나자다야 됐어요 봐 동네 전부도 살점돼야 돼 숭우 쓰그러 봐 어디나시 시당데 왜 사나 아니 랑 귤베 살점하나시 나자서고 당고 시당 숭을 디셈데 왜나 디탄데 야제 대비나 아니 가리어스나 베셈데 야제 대기나 이니 시번 냐면요스 이 시대 잡아내 요야요. 쌤디 야대나. 설겸다 라면 기베 간데. 엔디 사제 기바다 가와스롱과 가와치네 된 기부요 말에. 당 아주 배샤된 리간다 된 누구요 봐. 쌤 다가 야대나. 촌 시대된 양투고요 말에. 쌤 시원냐면요스. 가다 대와 매결이 님이 되면서 아니 비게 미 가야 간다 지금 다면다 다 간다 가르치비네. 링가 당같이 메네 가버tin 영투고요 말에. 칼라시 무슨에 칼라 좋아해 봐. 오다 비게 토토모로서 보단 판빈 강가 투이네라 균이 기우 매비체 어디 가봐든 양투고요 말이 디 쌤디 시다이나 안디가라 가르세 니미시 때문에서 고다 니 고로 마시 오다 가르세는 베드 미 녀반한 신 척척을 써야네 대선자 수분 내밖에 그요 다 간다 지단 쌤는 수분 내용 거로 봐 오레디 제자고 란 베트 타치도 안 내버치기요. 뭐 도잖아.
So we can see that this mental attitude or this feeling of anger or hatred, it's described very clearly as being that which harms us, that which makes us sick, that which makes us unhappy or disturbed. It's very clear that the more you have anger in the mind, the more you allow anger to come into the mind, all sorts of negative things. It's said to be, anger is said to be that which disturbs our peace. It makes our mind unpeaceful, uncalm. You can see that when you've got anger in the mind, all the things that you would normally enjoy, even you go on a picnic, for example, which would be a lovely picnic, but if you're angry and you're full of hatred, you don't enjoy it. You don't enjoy food so nicely if you're angry or you've got hatred inside you. You can't get on with other people. You can't relax and be happy with other people. And the longer you maintain anger and hatred in your mind, the more sort of damage it does to you, the physical damage. It makes you sick. You can't sleep properly if you have those in your mind. So you can really see how all these negative results come about due to this mental attitude.
어디래? 저자 돈을 토베 되네와 대가 위험해 손으로 다 간다 콘도도 유나 수기로 콘도를 깨이나 당아 기부 총사대 기부 총가고 시부 총사 수직을요 토베 되네와 되네 가위면 가와치네 수직을요 말에 가와치네요 말을 손쳐서 위험해 있어 어다 셈나가 됐다 딘데 가게 매배 가느야 라나 가디 가게 매배 가는 어다 동행는데 동행 많다줄 수 그래서 제자디 초바싱이디 먼저 내버싱이 따라야 돼요.
So our enemy, the thing that really harms us, if we ask what is our real enemy, what is the thing that really harms us, then we can say this mental attitude of anger or hatred is what's really damaging us. We say very clearly that a person who has anger in their mind doesn't have happiness. You can't have both anger in your mind and happiness in your mind at the same time. They just can't remain together. So again, if we ask, what is it that is really disturbing or taking us away from the happiness that we want, then it's those types of mental attitudes, particularly anger and hatred.
뭐야? 어디서 인자 아니 콘르 비게 시다스는 콘르스는 뒤견 하고 버체네. 남균에 아니 그 견 하고 버체 콘르스니디 어떤 타죽 넣어 친게 뭐네 자네게 편파 잡아내 맹게 어딘데시디 이미 인자 어디 견디 양내양 시험 버체 콘르 지금인도 콘르스니 딘데래 샤서 콘르 매백안에 삼도 안에 도체제 선파 콘바된 거고요. 대대비나 아니 참장 갱고 콘르 깨비네 콘르 규를 묻게 두마를 까는 거래. 안에서 콘르 중심은 다 가장 콘르 있다는 게매게 콘르 매봐. 딘데 자고 제가 딘데 중이나 딘데 연구도와 민가시 내마고 밑에 독자 쉬우다 등산 밑에 쉬우상 못 차샤스. 미하고 쉬우지 밑 딘데 규샤스. 미게 규려마. 승코 쌤 규르다 말. 쌤이 다가 규말 청학 규르는 마도. 제가 규르래.
So the way to deal with that mental affliction, if you like, the anger or hatred, the way we deal with it is by initially thinking and contemplating what's the damage, what's the harm that comes about due to those minds, and thinking again and again how it makes you unhappy, how it disturbs the mind, how it disturbs the peace, how it causes damage to oneself and others. And if you contemplate, if you meditate or think about that again and again, then that's the first thing you need to do to start to reduce and eventually remove anger or hatred. And if you can do that, what you'll find is that by contemplating that again, the faults and the disadvantages of anger, that gradually the anger in one's mind is that you're able to reduce it and eventually remove it. What you'll find is that by thinking about the faults of anger again and again, that in a situation where you would have got very angry previously, you'll find you still get angry, but not for quite so long, or not quite so badly. And eventually, if you keep going like that, then you can start to get to the point where you really don't get so angry so much and begin to remove anger. And the result of that, again, is very clear. You can see that if someone who's very angry or difficult at a certain stage in their life, and then they work on reducing that anger, and lessening that anger, that people recognise that person, someone that was not a very nice person, they were a difficult person, they were someone you didn't particularly like, but now they've become a very nice person, a very lovely person, and someone you do want to associate with. So you can see that making that internal change causes the change in how you view that person.
어떠잖아. 언디체 제가 지단 깨了 지단 되자요래 다 처음이 시바 비쇼 지금 동안 침부잖아 그 요래 되자 그것도 다 내가 지금 말해 되난신 콘도난신 남경 아주 셰설이야 되자 기아탄발레 콘도직도 그래서 어떤지 셰설요래 그도 그렇고 콘도 그도 내가 지도 어디서 인자 제자 아니 총아 김장지 나라 아니 사장편주 투고 쉬어야다 부고다 판매버로 투고 쉬어야 최소 계급편주 모두 쉬어야 배 간다 딘데 연구도가 뒤도서 셈을 투고래 셈 안에서 가르서나 시단 투도요래 그도다 시단 투
So it's really, you know, we're picking particularly on this mental affliction of anger or hatred because it's clearly the more direct thing which causes problems. Yes, we also talk about attachment or grasping as being a negative emotion, but in general, the negative emotion of grasping doesn't immediately cause the damage which anger does. Yes, it's a negative emotion, but unlike anger, it doesn't immediately cause problems in families or in people. But if we look at you know, the difficulties within a family, they generally come about. Why? Because there's anger or there's difficulty or hatred between members of the family. If you look at society in general, you look at how wars come about in the world, they all arise due to this mental affliction of anger or hatred. So you can see that this one in particular directly or very quickly causes harm.
Yeah. On this, that's just that. 어딘데 전다 콘도견 단다 디체마다 망보 지단 전에 칸소 아니 맞을 때나 시야 준주 소리 인비나 차상에 지단 전에 간데 미고 견으로 간데 되서 요리한 세비나 팬도시라요 아니 대다 안경 모름 지금 갈로 되서나 십지 팬도 전부도 와 어딘데 딱 간다 너 되나 맞을 셈 상고서다 셈 냠버서사디 니 간데르서나 셈 야고 써발라 셈 코란토네 쏘고 그래 셈 그 동이디 비게 매버 써발라 셈고 토네 남규딘데 셰서요 맞어 셈 그 내디 셈 토네 셈 암지디 셈 랑가마도 칠로네 요하요 말았어 제자 대송 인자 오비기 삼로 단조지가 토네 셈 그 동이 매버 수규래 대송 인자 제자 어다디 셈고 토네 비게 카소래 다 동인디게 생급이게 너버칭이 되게 봐 좀네 생고토네 봐 디기야 페리나 디 템포 쉽지 말한저 치탄의 벤조도 되고 말이야 시우지 템포 뭐네 타네 우리가 안 돼봐 안간저 되게 가사다 추케 링이지나 개만 처럼 배팅은 되네 되버도야 딘데 송고요래 딘데 개지다 추 매바다 가다 이렇게 말린 게 이미네 천다갈라 배 미진나는 디기디 쉽지 그게 동인에 베게 되네 대반도 아치 찾아가라나 우딘데 쓰용해야 돼 생각하는 연구예요.
So generally, this the subject of anger or hatred and how to deal with it is dealt with in various places. If you can look at Shantideva's Bodhisattva way of life, for example, there's a extensive presentation of how to counteract anger. That's extremely good to look at, and of course, His Holiness the Lama often teaches on how to reduce and how to deal with this negative emotion. So it's obviously good to look at those things and study further with those things. In general, though, from a Buddhist point of view, what we're saying here is that our happiness, our internal happiness, or our happiness and our suffering, very much depends upon the mind. That it's really the mind that's the main thing one needs to work on, whether it's to increase happiness or whether it's to reduce suffering. It's internally that we need to look rather than externally. And not only is it the mind or is it internally that we need to look, but in terms of the stability or the firmness of whatever happiness or reduction of suffering we're able to achieve. On the mental level, if you're able to do it, it becomes very, very solid and firm. Whereas if you're trying to establish your happiness from external levels, there's no stability, there's no reliance in those types of ways of finding happiness. So from that point of view, again, the mind is where one wants to try and bring more happiness and to develop more qualities which bring happiness and reduce ones which cause suffering. And it's the mind, again, that will bring stability in those things as well.
어떠잖아. 어디지? 제가 어디 딘데 체네 아니 비게 가사 다랑 교육이 콘도티 바 베트칸다 탑시로 걸었던 것도네 남바 나조 돈에 큰데 딴 것도네 콘도 마충충충 딴 콘도 매웠어 콘도 충충 콘코코에서는 고 게를 대비 인자 가리네 고 소주게 아요 대송 인자 매웠어다 지당 알아서 콘도 여봤다 매봤잖아 콘도 매봐 시비기부여 봐 콘도 연구디 기부여 말봐 고란만 기부여 봐 왜 그도 있네 그래서 키도 하고도 키베 콘도 잡아대는 현 수치 책문도 가르션도 키까지 전부 그 가와인 디디도 와다 밀지 버봐.
So again, we have to recognize that these things are negative, that they're harming us, that they're the true enemy, our anger and hatred and so forth. And we have to use whatever methods we can, or whatever methods work, to try and reduce and eventually eliminate those negative qualities and negative states of mind. So whatever it is that we find works, that we find that reduces, that makes us less angry, makes us have less hatred, then those are things which we should put into practice. Why? Because when it comes down to being happy, if you haven't got anger, if you haven't got hatred in your mind, then you're a happy person. You don't have the unhappiness that someone who has those mental afflictions experiences. That's the same for people. It's the same even with animals. If you look at a dog, for example, a very angry or a nasty dog, no one really wants to go near a dog like that. Whereas a dog which is very sort of soft and kind and loving, then everybody likes a dog and wants to go near a dog like that. So you can see in dogs and in people as well, it's the same thing. That sense of that happiness comes out from kindness and not from the anger.
어떻잖아. 언디체 되네 비게 이동 와서는 비게 통당 야고치 랑가사지는 이동 통거를 봐 어디 낭시 현다 비게 다랑 알랭가 통고 김장 안에 이용 그 통에 비게 야고치 비게 통야 이동 와 코가르선 대바 두고요 동행 두고요 말 가르선은 금지 뒤 통에 뚜두고 통에 엔비게 고 이동 왔다야 그제 이동 와 야고치 통이나 안텔 그 동이 주나 비게 가사 어디 동이 때다 봐 텐드 잡아내는 거 비게 랑 가사진 대 동이 주나 랑 기부 용문도 하고 배 매서고도 동이 세 간데 세고 선배 어디나 신체 그제 이동 와 통이나 랑게 사자이 있는다 보고 있는다 안디네 미션다 다 봐 같이 담면 되고 땅에 봐 어디 그제 이동 통이나 이문 뒤에나 아니 비게 텔 동엔 나와를 미스베 잡아들래 용 거. 잡아. 어디 잡아 가젤레비는 고다 타면 팬. 뭐네. 나란주 디기 잡아래.
So one of the main sort of causes of us to have less anger and less hatred and more loving kindness and compassion towards others is how close we feel, the closeness we feel to others. So again, within a family or within society in general, the closer you feel towards others, the more pleasant you see others people, and the more close you feel to them, then the more easy it is to be compassionate. So when you see someone you feel close to or you feel pleasant or good about, then when you feel them when you see them suffering, you have immediately a wish that they don't have that suffering arises, and immediately towards someone like that, whether it be in a family again or in society in general, if you feel close, if you feel warm towards others or pleasant towards others, then it's almost automatic that those feelings of wanting them to be happy and not wanting to suffer then arise in yourself.
어디네체 지단 텐데 연구도 와랑수 미래에 세제 알레 당한주도 개방의지 켈링기를 봐난 거이나 아니 줄다 끝나 캐 많은 게 이미 있네 고고매야 돼요 봐 그것도 아주 딘데 상로 따네 딱 한다 미래에 제 딘데 미디 eng에만 거제 팬 토는 파마 거제 선수 딘데 상단데서 받고 가바실 연구도 와 대다 안 내가 신이 주에는 대단 내가 쉐브딘데 마음만 팬야 토에 팬토 마음에만 팬 거제는 비 딘데 비 상단은 콘트디랑서 연구도 와 비 고가르스는 상단 조직 토네 어디 송인장 아니 이용 참바디 거제 미지 권비네 코야 팬용 팬 델레는 자발레 어디 송인장 디 semno 권마고 다 칭아 비게 금제양다 토는 권마고 캬바요.
So and again this training to see other people as pleasant or close to other people or loving kindness to other people it comes about through expanding your mind into the whole sort of presentation of as Buddhists that we believe in past and future lives, that we believe that people who may be unpleasant to us now have not always been that way, that everybody's been very kind towards us at some point, and that even someone who's harming us now or someone we don't feel close towards now is something that's a situation that in the future could change, and we could feel more kind and more close to them. So expanding the mind out in that way in terms of thinking of past and future lives and the past and future, and that others in various times have been kind, have helped us in various ways, allows this feeling of loving kindness, of closeness towards others to arise. And from that, then of course it's much easier to feel compassion towards others, and it's much easier to feel that sense of wanting others to be happy and not wanting to suffer.
Oh yeah, that do na. Ani bega rana je simje 탐지 심je cheme ta ale khasa 탐지 lemne yasare. 탐지 대화 누구요래? 동인 누구요 말. 수직 대화 그제 주는 누구요? 동인 춘주는 누구요 말. 대송 인자 아니 비게 가서래다. 어디 금생게 토안에 다 가르선 동이 유디 다조 녀모 디나네 콘도디 크도 다 내가 징이 송인자 콘도디 파 빵고래 배 그제 비게 금생양다 토안에 비 삼단에 파 콘도디 파 매버스 콘도 충충충다 콘도 배 자원에 마기했어 그래서는 아주 내가 컨디션으로 콘도 교나 과야야 말 다가나시 깨지셔버려 과야야 말 컨디션은 콘도 과야야 나고 다 콘도 뒤지 고할세 그러봐 과야 균이야 말 내가 컨디션은 콘도 과야면 콘도 매버ton 강가시 해도 그래 다가나 이게 셰비네 콘도 매버ton 강가시 해도 그래 배는 컴퓨터 세제 배 현달라 그게 뭐는 접어져야지는 콘도 켜는 과야야 말 콘도 얘는 콘도 내버치 그래 내버게 그래 그래서는 란섬 투두 잠 깨지 시하고도 마시고 강가시 그러봐 그 강가 마시고 셰 그래 어디서 인자 미금지기 턴 수디 셰비는 콘도 맹게디 켄도 어디서자 콘도 게셰레 군내버치 그래 아니지 콘도지 쉬어지면 디 가서 휴다면시 랑강괴가 휴식도 어디 뒤서체 처적이 전에 요한편이요 제가 콘도 디 가르서나 나란서 자와 이 야가다 또 그렇게 지난 가르다 두고 세야면도 컨디 체비네 콘도 뜻하네 과양 콘도 매버ton 강가치도 혼도잖아.
So again, this whole idea of what brings us happiness and what brings us suffering, it rests upon the the initial understanding that we as living beings, all sentient beings, all living beings, have this innate wish to be happy, and we have a wish not to have problems, not to suffer. That's the same for all of us, humans, animals, whatever sort of living being it is. We're all the same in that way. And if you look again, what is it that makes us happy and what is it that makes us suffer? Then clearly, this mental affliction of anger or hatred is very clearly something which doesn't make us happy, and you can see that if it was a case that there were some situations or some times in life when anger was useful, or when it was needed, or when we actually benefited from being angry, then fair enough, it might be reasonable to continue to have anger or hatred in your mind. But the reality is that any situation which is accompanied with anger or hatred never turns out well, or never becomes never works out the way it should do. So if it's dealing with others, if you're in discussion with others, if you're debating with others, if you're in a discussion on certain topics, if you're angry when you do that, it doesn't help the situation. It only makes it worse. So if you try and do anything in life with anger in your mind, then you end up doing it wrongly, or you end up doing it badly, or you end up getting confused, or not carrying out that action the way it should be done, or as easily as it should be done. So it's very clear then that mental anger and hatred within one's mind is clearly something which is not useful in any situation. And as it's not useful, then it's very obviously something which we should try and reduce and eventually remove.
디르바나 꼭 깨셔버려 콘도 고마 말아래. 대다나 실내가 컨디션은 콘도 고하려 고마 말래. 고마 말아.
there's never a time, doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're talking with others or you're discussing with others or whatever it may be, there's never a time when anger is useful. It's always harmful.
봐. 원디체 다 가르서는 참즈성이도 고래. 가르서는 참바자바산디 미케바 캠바 개봉원에 타는 케바지네 참즈 고래. 어다 가게 미싱이지네 참즈 고래. 가르서는 대바도 동에 만들어 인사. 대바 대비 인사 참바자바사디 비게 대베 비게 싸버려 돼요. 제가 참즈도 고래. 참즈디 랑라 디기 종장 마세 先他让数据来참지 되어이나 어디디 비게 김상코라이 디기 차게요래 어디디 그사 밑다 되네 김산에 아니 디 비게 참지 용이 미망고 주나 그 고유코라 참지랑 신차용 참지 제가 참지사디 어디 강도 김산이 있는다 어디지 고유 있는다 비 간다 참지디 배 시라 개심버래 고유요
And just as anger or hatred is something which we don't need, which doesn't bring the happiness we wish for and doesn't reduce the suffering we don't wish for, in a similar way, love and compassion is something which we do need. It's something which does bring us the happiness we wish for. It does bring us the satisfaction, or it does reduce the suffering that we don't want. So it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter whether you're a great scholar or very rich, or you're somebody who knows nothing or is very poor. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what situation you are in life. It's clear that if you have love and compassion, it brings more happiness into your life. And that someone, wherever they may be and whatever they may be doing, within a family, within countries or whatever you look at, the more love and compassion there is within the individual, the more love and compassion that they do things with, the more happy they become. And again, if that's what we want, if happiness is what we want and suffering is what we don't want, then it's very clear that love and compassion is something we do need.
와야 어디체 어디 된데 제가 비게 랑려야 편바치고 삼네 참즈고래 현달라 편바자 참부치 제삼네 참즈고고요 참즈 어디 비게 깨지 셰비네 현나 비게 참즈고네 셰비네 핑그래 다가나시 내가 제비는 참지여나 핑계요. 참지산디. 디체 대선자 라나페 셴나페. 다가나시 다 가서래. 라나 깨다다 비게 야고치 구구도나 미 야고래사다 원에 타네 녀다 야고구구이나 랑귤 참지 깨버잖아. 아니 비게 가서 녀다디 용고래. 단다 루규나리아 미가 셰베 상보 시우틴데다 아니 녜메타 기우타메 남다스 데 마직 로윤도 잠바 베 거소라 가와게 안 돼요 베 원에 타네 이란게 베 어디서 데 가래서나 참바데 잡아도 예비 인자 미야고차 기부 담바사데 어디 참지 다니스요 어딘데 레자자 라니 녜다 누구도나 참지 고고요 야 메신다 걸로 깨야체 로데 투버스고 베게 미강게 이지체서 lö가이고나 랑귤 참zet게고 참제여나 미 lö게 그래 미 야고지게요 대선자 참제등만에 타네 당아서 가서래 디기 잡아래 개심보 시라래 니 개심보를 응원에 타네 그다 고야 편 베데리 이난디 고야래 세지미 현다지는 렌산이 요마래 정간이 요야 마송도 미야요 마로 암신 소투야요 마래 어디선자 티 랑기 비게 썸띵네 금진 셰베 코네 오 참제야 기규레 썸이야 오 딘데레 도체
So again, that this love and compassion, feeling close to others, having love and compassion is something we definitely need. It's something which, why do we need? Because of our interdependence with others. It's something which makes ourselves happy and it makes others happy as well. It's something if you whatever sort of activity you undergo, if it's just talking to others or working or whatever it may be, the more love and compassion you have when you're doing those things, the happier you become, not just for yourself but for others as well. And if you look at for example, you look at the lives of great masters before, and you see of the great things they achieved, and you rejoice in the activities that they were able to undertake and all the good deeds they were able to do, you can think again, what's the root of that? what's the root of them being able to do those things? Then it comes again down to the love and compassion that they have in their mind. So again, if happiness is what we're looking for, it's not something where love and compassion is something which we need, but it's not something we're going to get from outside. It's not something we buy in a shop, or it's not something the doctor can give us, whatever else. These are things which we can develop in our own minds. They're things which internally we can develop and grow, not something we can gain from outside. And there's something, just as anger is something we don't need, then these things are things which we do need.
Yeah, 자자 먼저 류다 나게 저버 독자 영향하게 아니 네 규드 가르선 셈도 그래 셈나네 크도 그래 도시도 가르선 콘도도 그래 자자 아니 콘도 교회에 셰버체네 콘도 생이 디 라네 신라네 그게 저방에 뭐 간다 타고 독자 미 독자라다 산디 디 소고야 미 이마셔야 아니 미드 파샤는 둔저 마가셔야 그 소고야 자자 어떤 디 독자인 바 신네 콘도 교회한테 곰니 콘도 총다 콘도 교회한테 하고 있는 거 뒤두고 말봐 어딘지체 되니 잠바다 잡아산디 어따베 라나페 시안페 응원에 타네 딘데 레디어 응원에 타네 먼저 더 노블라고 노 먼저 군주사 뒤 인사를 배제 딘데 소리다 어디서 인자 니야 콤바체나 안라나 다 노브드라요 그래 어디서 인자 야 콤바단 거예요 콤바체네 니 제비나 곰시드 잠바 인지미적 조조시 대지 딘데 깨지 셰고요 말다고 그뒤 내가 생기치는 삼단으로 니마레레 까마 숨쉬로 딘데 삼단비네 군교부 유용도로 와 군교부도 그래 다가나시 누군이나 사기나 다 찹산단뒤에 고 삼단 초 그래 다가나시 봐좀 뭐다 단도나 그뒤나 고 삼단이여 봐 콘도 견다 참바 잡았는데 배편에 전부 이마 니야게도 컨데 치고 이미 또 삼단이는 섬는 교가 된den도 그래 섬나 어디 손인자 섬는 교가도 그래 네 종이나 아니 디기사디 칠로자마 디기 나네게 디기 나로네 디기 나네 종이나 칠레시라 뜨고 말해 다 칠 지금 다 치때도 고 된대요 말고 고 코르바스 이런 거지 고바선자 디기야도 동네 망아르시라 어쨌든 다 칠로 가르쳐내 마시는 나로네 디기 니마서 다 디기 니메서 나로네 샤리나 아니 응원에 차네게 된 담배 디기사디 용구요 치 니마다 난게 디기 니마 참지 니마 잖아 난게 시라 쇼체래 치 비기 니마 있는 때 팬도도 첨부시라라 봐 고 페시라 매나 유용해야 말고 가르서는 멤버스에게 요래 투기 되고 얘네야 가시래 님의 식도 그래 님의 뇌가 기자요 난게 참지 님한테 수치를 봐 라는 편 시안의 편 뭐네 타는 디기 님았어 난게 디기 님아 어딘데 도잖아
So again, those two differing attitudes, the internal attitude of love and compassion is something which we need, something which brings us more happiness, and the reverse, anger and hatred, is clearly something which doesn't bring that happiness, which actually brings disturbance or unhappiness into the mind. So having sort of contemplated and thought about that and recognized the difference between those two things, then it becomes something which is important to work on, to try and develop, to try and reduce the negative emotions of anger and hatred, and try and develop or increase or grow the positive ones. This is not something which you necessarily have to do sitting on a meditation cushion and in meditation, but it's something you can bring into all the things you do in your life. Through recognizing, through understanding the negative traits of anger and hatred, and through understanding the positive ones of compassion, love and compassion and so forth. Whether you're at work, whether you're driving the car, whatever you may be doing in your day, you're able to bring that understanding into your day. You don't have to be sitting on the meditation cushion. Even when you go to the toilet, you can still be thinking about love and compassion, or you can be thinking about the faults of anger and so forth. So these are things which you can bring in just a few minutes every day, and if you do like that, definitely you will see a change. There's definitely an improvement in the mind, and the negative things become less, and those positive things, the love and compassion, become more. And it's really when one compares the sort of, we talk about the external sun and then the internal sun of positive qualities, the sun of love and compassion. Out of those two things, the internal one is so much more important and so much more reliable. If you compare in terms of the internal light or the internal sun and the external sun can be very beneficial. It can help people and it can warm the world and it can remove darkness and so forth. But it can also be negative as well. People can get burnt, for example, from the sun, or it can harm you. In opposed to that, the internal sun, the sun of love and compassion, is something which will always help. It's never got any negative side to it. It's never going to cause any harm. It's something that's always going to be beneficial. It's always going to be useful and always going to make you into a happier, better person.
我要问你的是，我的son长，他看他，看他做，起第一呢古有的，我的，可是呢，起第一的哪个第一做来的？他当的变哪路子呢？ 치 동에 민도베체 동에 매버서 뺀 수고르시 나비나 매세 암치된 칼레칼레만도 다 두고 말봐 고 매버서 봐 다가나 시 변조로 써오는 칼레칼레만도 고 연구요 말봐 다 나게 동에 비게 샘퉁 동에 나베 동에 여바디 고 가래서나 삼로 단조지도 탄다라 매버서도야 고베 단도 무이 댕이진 단도 베트 삼다죠 개무게 되는 용도가 안 된듯이 용도가 자상 고 가래서나 삼로 단조지 토네 람냥 비게 고비게 매버서도야 생고동에 된대 용도 다들 삼로 단발라 금지한다 심산디 뭐이 내주 시에나마도 고 두고 말봐 뭐이 내주 시에버체 어디 손인자 아니 비게 가서래 다 디기 잡아디 아니 참바잡아 임바 참지 임바 어디 앞에도 비게 뒷뇌지로부터 시에다 다 녀모 뇌자 시단이나네 배 독시 시단 어디 견다 하고 봐체 어 딘데시 공부시로 나셔야 다 도토잖아 다 원대 견아서 더 첨부제 패버려 나 시라 쉬야 참면도 다 딘데시만도 도잖아
So again, the main thing which Rinpoche wants to get across tonight is this concept of this idea that what is it which brings happiness, not from not in a blind way, but out of reason, with logic and reason behind it, to understand what is it which really makes you happy and what is it that really causes problems and suffering. And particularly these two things that yes, ignorance and all sorts of delusions cause problems and cause unhappiness, but really out of them one of the worst is this anger or hatred which really disturbs your mind. And again, what is it out of positive things? The root of really all goodness arises from love and compassion. And these things are things which we can develop in the mind, and they're much more quick in a sense to develop than external things, because external things such as recovering from a sickness, for example, you go to the doctors and you take the medicine and you gradually get better from the sickness. Or becoming rich or having lots of material things, it doesn't happen instantly. You have to work on it, and over a period of time you gradually accumulate more material things and become better off. Opposed to that, the mental qualities, love and compassion and so forth, are things which you can pretty much instantly happy. It just requires a change in your way of thinking, and a change in the way of thinking can be pretty much instantaneous. You can change the way you think about something, or the way you're reacting to something, very almost instantaneously in your mind. So they also have a difference in that sense, in that the internal qualities, which are much more important, are also much more quick to bring into effect and have much quicker effect on yourself and your happiness like that. So that's the main thing that Rinpoche hasn't got a lot to say tonight, but that's the main points he wants to make on those two.
뭐야 어떠잖아. 다 배지 다 샤워 있어요. 제장. 다 제장 먼저 나랑 제비는 펜셔로데 직디도 제장. 주주 나리야. 개대주스 나는 텔레메가 차지유. 개대주스면 텔레메가 제지 펜송도. 아니 당가라서 깨로 나면을 연구를 봐. 지금 야가 연구 도구 연구를. 다 간다 띵을 그도를 파 줘야 주나. 랑게 개시고 야면 간다 줘야 되나. 됐음 투고 말에. 봐 줘서는 봐 줘셔는 되겠어. 비게 다시 땅네. 어디 셈 투고 말했어. 개시 콘도 사고 말했어. 개시 줘서면은 비게 딱 줘서면 봐 여러 봐. 줘서면 왜다 걔 같이는 그 줘서면 봐 여러 봐. 나랑 걔가 내지기 그 줘서면 봐 뭐요. 줘서면은 텔레미가 제집해서 그 줘줘야 말 대랑 콘도 사를 벨롱 난다 간다 가르치네. 팽한 켜네요 말았어. 제가 어디 배 시라게 비게 삼다야다 편도 침벌해야 돼요. 도치.
So one of the sort of most inspiring or useful verses which relate to this is the verse in the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, again, which says if there's something you can do about something, then there's no point in worrying about it, and if there's nothing you can do about something, again, there's no point in worrying about it. Which says very clearly that a bad situation, a difficult situation, if there's something you can do, if you can change it or alter it or improve it in some way, then do it. But worrying about it isn't going to make any difference. And if there's nothing you can do about a situation, if there's no remedy to it, there's nothing you can do to improve it, again, there's no point in worrying about it. So those words, that verse from the Bodhisattva's Way of Life is very poignant or useful when you're thinking about these things.
So
we'll stop there for now, and if anybody has any questions, we can have some questions.
Rinpoche, I just wondered, you were talking about anger and saying it can never ever be positive. I just wondered if there was ever an occasion where actually feeling a little bit of anger actually made you do something positive, actually prompted you into an action that was positive for others, beneficial for others.
Samsung mi kashiki kesi control na chedanguna konso chawa chela pendo yosigres singina na
견생 말아. 어다 비게 가르쳐 잡아 제일 콘트 견는 거예요. 콘트 가르쳐는 쌤 툭. 그 가서 요 잡아 제발 콘트 매배통 간 거지도.
No. There's never a situation where anger and hatred is going to, because the problem with anything you do out of anger and hatred is going to cause your mind to be undisturbed, and therefore there's never going to be something constructive that will come out of that. So there's no situation where it's ever going to be useful.
네. 감가라 콘도에 팬도 유야이나 아니 전주선 벨랍제 가려 거라. 콘도 나와. 네가도 콘도 제초에서 요만 차는 콘도. 다 녀만은 되잘 나와 요라. 대만도 콘도 짜네요 말.
If it was the case that there was some instance where anger could be helpful, then the bodhisattvas and Buddhas and bodhisattvas would have given us the advice that yes, use anger every now and then when you need it. But you don't see that anywhere, do you? So.
This is a follow-up to that question, actually. There's a phrase in English called righteous anger, and it is sometimes explained that righteous anger can be helpful. For example, anger against fracking, or anger against injustice. And I was thinking about that while Rinpoche was speaking, and thinking that maybe anger is the wrong word to associate with that particular expression. It's more like it's actually a form of compassion. So maybe the phrase righteous anger isn't helpful.
Righteous anger control tarant insa mare nini chane ninjere ninjere naso injisek de control lagre control la chane se kita michik dusha cheyena ti dusha gaila nini chane shedan chegores lagra naso injisek nana
ale
yanti nini shedan yena mena peche shedan insa mara
아 대인이 막 인지 거 된다고 전 럽스틱 말에 산 제가 단다 현다게 지 가서다 너바까야다 다 간다 딘데 거들 전주 선배는 지금 초변 넘버 된 사이여 봐 상계도 초변 넘버 된 사이여 넘버 된 버래 마도 디 가서 콘도 계자마 다 니지고는 콘도 비 토변 남바다 즉 직접을 라벤데 여러와 니지고는 다 딘들라고 얘기래 대만도 콘도 안 나와요 니지 가발라고 늘라고 말하잖아
It definitely wouldn't be. It wouldn't be anger. It could. It shouldn't be anger anyway. The example of that would be, great beings or bodhisattvas who show a very wrathful attitude, and that wrath is very useful. The wrath is useful to deal with certain situations, and there's a need for showing that wrath, but that wrath is definitely not anger. So no, if it's constructive and useful, then it's not anger, as you say.
Okay.
Just maybe a technical question. So the Shantideva is they say, don't they? If you can do something about it, don't worry. If you can't do something about it, don't worry. Well, what happens if you don't know if you can or you can't do something about it? Surely that means you can worry. I mean,
셈데스 말이다. 콘도치 말이다. 셈 투고 말이다.
다 콘트로치고 말이다. 이니한다 소소 하모거나. 체나 하모거나 간다체.
그래서 하모고치 이제 콘트롤 안 되네.
다 시체스야 돼 콘트롤 계속 체유나. 다 콘트롤에 배니요 말아. 계속 체유 메나. 콘트롤에 배니요 말아. 다 소소 체나 하모거나.
하모고는 다 하고 버쳐 버리다. 그거 안. 그래서나 셈 투기야 말이야. 셈 못도 버쳐. 다 신앙선 셈 투고로 봐. 셈 못도에 돈에 간 것이 아니요. 그래서
Well, whether you know or don't know what to do, maybe you need to get to know whether you can do something about it or not. But the point here is that whatever it is that's happening or occurring, you don't want to disturb your mind over it. That's the basic point. There's no point in disturbing your mind on things like that.
Okay. Sik the Lord sim, and go gang to do some tata korea shirayondi. Go. Sik the bizma de yamarma.
No, it's very good to learn that little verse because it's very easy. It's only a few lines. It's good to learn, and then you can, in situations when things arise, it's very quickly something you can use.
Okay.
We can act on compassion with the people around us who are close to us. And I think Christians are very good at that, but they're also very good at engaging with people further away as well. And organisations such as the Red Cross, the Red Crescent, go and help people who are in distress. But for somebody ordinary like me, I don't know what to do about situations like Syria. What would Rinpoche do?
These are Tarimbo Yenzang. So Ninji Chena, Pento Candace Chegger. That Tarimboki, Markia, and Diesel and Nezo. Nezo picture Diesel.
Ole.
No, Pena, Syria and Markia, Syria said.
Ole. Tadi Kasati, Jida Tambo Changdu Zamba, in the society in a jungle, Kanga. Could never change in the teen young good and pending in the teen on the time was Shadara. The society young woman, that's the young Tonichana. Chazan, nearly Jansa de teenager. Inaya Tadi Casa, Chambada Zavasandi, Kachambore, Ninji Gad, Big Dungi tend to Zavadi, Chaza Dungi Nine soon to Chinepa, Capujuri, Cabin would be Dungi the terror chance on the conducting. Ngare chigi samsa maybe na ngale tungi de terror samsa zabati ko da ko pe ti checho gorba ngaran zambulin di kane na ta amjo ko da kanda sundulu nen 통게 yorba o dindes je ti ta yore ta ngazo yan ti mai be jigdin shenda shege yor ta jigdin shenda ngazo di nangwen na shenda jigdin shenda yorba jigdin takwa da mada be jigdin mada be jigdin kenta 마닥베 지기 체비는 장len 대봐. 심지 요르다 이간 대반도 동에 만들고 요. 대주 미야데 알랭엘 디 개셔링 마도 신다 미야데 람사 가보도 와. 지난 강감에 올 때.
In Germany, the way we have to train ourselves is that when we first begin to develop love and compassion towards others, we have to use the people nearest to us because that's what we can use, and it's very difficult to go further than that. But once you've done that, once you've actually, the internal qualities of love and compassion, once you have developed those and you use the sort of people nearer to yourself to do that, then having got them inside yourself, having developed them, having progressed in those feelings, then you can extend your mind out to all other, and not just to this world. From a Buddhist point of view, there's not just this world. There are many worlds. If you look at the impure realms that exist, there are many others apart from just this world. And so, once the quality of love and compassion is something you may need to develop more with people nearer to yourself, but it's something which then you can extend out to those other places.
But with that extension from the mind, is that enough? Can that be of benefit to those people?
저는 다른 얘기인데서 나다른 인지께 두가 이는 나zola 인지 가스께 이나 콘트라 밴드 연하면아 그나 박이 마게 이나 또 나서 인지 이어라 이네 콘트라 밴드 연하
가서 그것다가 수사 니지게는 수사 쇼펜터를 마도 펜터 말아 핑 말에 제가 근데 인다 니지 전주스면 딱 가서 상계도 니지 건당이 되기로 된다 말아 내가 아니 다 동이 나봐 미세베 잡아디 동이 나봐디 미세베 ಚಾನೆ 미세베서 다 동이에 배 가서데 동이에 배 가서 미세베 잡아디고 딱 동이에 배 처음 매웠은 거 땡게 되면 내고 그냥 선다 상계에 던 거를 전주쇼 심기도 좀 심기도 되라 누구인데 되라 전주 심사대 dumbachiga kada shen de dumba sande shen dungen nawa mesebe tsaba desego tan de dungen nawa mesebe kyone ta de ngarang pege dungen de deba chiga chetten te chebala sangya ko wan ton ma to ran de mena mendu sam ko de kiga yorwa cheza de son yinza rangi de khasa pege 닝지 첨부 검는 거란서도 알지나 탐해봐 시샤체 검는 파주를 남상 핑게 말해 말도 소소 싫어 핑게
Generally, the attitude of compassion to others is something which initially doesn't have much immediate benefit to everybody everywhere. It's taught to begin with that you need to develop that quality or that factor inside yourself to develop the compassion inside yourself, and you use whatever you need to do that. But obviously, when we're talking about more extensively, if you talk about the attitude of bodhicitta, for example, it's something which contains two parts to it. Part of it is the compassion and the love, but the other part of it says, well, am I actually able to do anything about that? Am I actually able to take away suffering from others? Am I actually able to give them happiness? And that's when you get to the point of thinking, well, actually, no, at the moment, I can't really do very much. And that's why the other part of bodhicitta is that the understanding that I need to become a Buddha. I need to become someone who can do that. And so therefore, the complete understanding of compassion, or the complete understanding of bodhicitta at least, contains those two parts. That yes, I feel sorry and I want to take away that suffering, but can I do it now? No. What do I need to do therefore to become someone who can do that? And that's the attitude of wanting to become a Buddha for the benefit of other people.
Okay. Yeah. 다 어제 오늘 잠수 공부했어. 뭐 그래요.
So it looks like you really are meditating on love and compassion.
아사지 되시라야 그래. 지단 가서나 잠수 고매야 거라. 네 가서라. 아주 진바시요라. 진바시. 성승이 진바. 미지고 깨기 진바. 추기 진바. 잠비 진바. 진바시요. 다 성승이 진바산데 미 지금 서교 통교 매봐. 다들 zor을 세 진바다. 안타가네 거 진바다. 대사지 펜도 지야죠 봐. 등은 펜도도 전부 쉬어 봐. 마 매사. 야 군조 쳐봐. 야. 그래서 간거 성승이 진바스요. 딘데부베 시라 첨부요. 다 딜레 성승이 진바 오와래다. 대간 딜레 펜유베 시라 경규 동교 쳐봐데. 미지고 깨기 진바스. 신거 쏘 깨비하다. 미베 동에 나니 대절 섬수다야. 다데 소개가 단다 무춘주진에 소개가 돼요. 그동안데 미지고 geb기 집에 공래. 에밀 어다 뒤수체. 되네 대가나 다 들려진 바 체데 추기 마서 그래. 다 추기 바. 추 지지 펜션군 나란 셰드스. 추기 마체. 다 대가나 들려 토쇼데 참배지 마서다. 참배지 뭐 바지야 개야마 개셔야 개마디 참바들 잡아 고면하더래. 다 대문에 타네. 표현 첨부 시라인 송구여 봐. 레레. 참바 잡아 고미 롱버들 찍이요나. 롱버 거라베. 사자 거라베 최변내 인 송거다. 미코라데 인데이. 어디 sonda 어때 공모래 시라 표현 첨부.
So we talk about there being 4 types of giving or generosity. And out of those 4 types, the first one is the giving of material things. And of course, providing things with people with things they need and material things they need, that's a positive thing to do and a beneficial thing to do. But better than that, and higher than that, is the next sort of generosity or giving, which is the giving of protection or refuge to others. And that's, helping others in need. And like when you see an insect which is dying, protecting it from dying. And protecting people that need protection from various things. That's better than the first type of generosity. The third is even better than that, and that's the giving or the generosity of giving Dharma, or giving the teachings, and with a positive motivation of wanting to help, of wanting to benefit. Giving teachings and giving Dharma to others is the third type, and that's again more beneficial than the first 2. But the greatest type of generosity, the fourth one, is the generosity of love and compassion, and it's that feeling within oneself of love, of wishing others to be happy, and the compassion, wishing them not to suffer. That's the greatest type of generosity, because from that so many beneficial things come about. So you can, even from the point of view, if you think of an area or a land or a country, someone in that place who has huge amounts of love and compassion in them, it benefits everything. It's felt everywhere. It's felt in the area where they are. It's felt in the place where they stay. The benefits of that type of generosity is the highest type of benefit.
뭐야, 뭐 점수 공부해서 점수 공부 있는 다디 다 동행낭이 신다 여비는 디 비경원에 동의배 교제 가리는 가와인 배멜로 비게 교통이 상계성이 저봐. 어디 누가 교대를 점수 공부라.
So one really has to,
점수 공부이 교부대 상계로 상계고. 간가다 내라고 제가 비게 가서 동행을 대투 그러봐.
So one really does need to meditate on this attitude of love and compassion. It's the most profound thing you can meditate on. It's someone who's able to do that can quickly become a Buddha. That's the real cause of quickly becoming. Someone who's really meditating, really trying to develop those internal qualities of love and compassion. That's the person who's going to quickly become a Buddha.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask if it's enough to wish yourself compassion, to wish that you have love and compassion, or do you have to, for it to be meaningful for you then to extend it to others, do you have to have actually kind of mastered the art of that true kind of love and compassion for yourself? Does that make sense?
Sort of.
Do you have to have kind of,
Yeah.
does it have to be true and meaningful within yourself to then extend out and to then extend further? Or is it enough to have a genuine wish that you may feel loved and that you may have self-compassion?
Sorry, you're going to say it again.
Sorry, I'm trying to think. I think because I think particularly in the
You're
West.
talking about compassion or self-compassion?
I'm talking about self-compassion. So if we're thinking about how we do it, we need to focus on that love and compassion for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've cultivated that, you then extend it out and wish that for other people.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously a lot of us struggle with that, having those feelings towards yourself. So is it enough to just have a genuine desire to be wishing that for yourself?
Self-compassion.
Yes. Or do you have to have really mastered that to be moving on? I don't know if I'm making a distinction where there isn't one.
나서 배지 인지 미기 같은 몸에 인자라 소소라 인지를 백 가버려셔 미카시 배지 지기기 메다 능제기 인자라 소소라 인지를 갈아가고 싶어 딱 뭐라 라야세는 소소라 미미 인제 양다바케야 미셴버 타다 mi shambala kyo ninjila didn't know la. Yabos so so lamijini go in a manner.
다가란 거. 팀이 삼단 베게저샤. 뭐는 타네. 내가 가르서나 랑 동에 컨대 것도 강에 컨대 용도. 내가 랑 삼로 현장에서 신다를 가고 봐. 제가 랑 대번도 동에 자는 되고요 말이. 제가 랑 대번 망고도 동에 망고도 컨대도 내가 랑 삼단 거래. 제가 내가 랑 동에 나한테 다랑게 동에 들려 타고 지고도 삼. 어딜래 초진의 이중스 다라람이 왜 인지 어디래 얘는 팀에 봐 신다를 갖고 봐 내려 그런 삼담 다 그러네 모두도
It's a very it's an important thought what you have. It's a good question, and really the answer is that, as it says in the Lamrim teachings, that real compassion can only come about if you've understood on the basis of renunciation. And renunciation, what does that come about? It comes about from understanding one's own suffering and recognizing and one's own level of suffering. Only if you do it for yourself and then recognize as deep as it goes the suffering that you're undergoing, can you then move over and start to think about the suffering of others. So I suppose the answer to the question is yes. To really move on to having proper compassion for others, you need to start off with the renunciation, which recognizes your own suffering.
오케이 야야 란란 잡아 인지면 주고 얼마도 란 잡으면은 간다 정도다 지난 잡아 제수도 인지면 지 도시세 애니베 대세기 버전 때도 수불 때도 고 데리고 다 조조 생각하네 고그로 봐 개치 주셈데 문도잖아
Definitely, having the love and compassion towards oneself is extremely important, and completely ignoring yourself and allowing just your own personal conditions to be uncomfortable and difficult is not going to be good for anyone. So yes, love and compassion towards oneself, they're very important.
Okay. 라서 네. 다 다가입니다. 라서 다 다가 시작이 도잖아. 아니 이제다 뒤져 그런 도 사도 뒤져 사도 도잖아. 알레요. 람네 비치르잖아. 람네 뜻중기. 알레요.
So Rinpoche just can do some blessing.
군대든 람네죠. 어떻게 이해하면 조조나 주에 상계는 장주선 받am자 달라고서 지선나게 타당님에 선제가는 메네베 양엘렌데베 살라마샤 개와는 양엘레메다 왔던 쇼소서 제라도요 고송도에 된데는 사다 추다 메다 롱은네베 마시기 봐 디스심제는 박도 매워서지 때마 주네겐 다소 선제 담자는 저다 두문우도 말로서 수다는 데인데 소하 조조나 주에 상계는 장주선 받am자 달라고서 지선나게 타당님에 선제가는 메네베 양엘렌데베 살라마샤 개와는 양엘레메다 왔던 쇼소서 제라도요 고송도에 된 사다 추다 메다 롱은네베 마시기 봐 디스심제는 박도 매워서지 때마 주네겐 다소 심제 담자 저다 두문우도 말로서 수다는 데인데 저 조나슈베 상계단 전주 선바탐제 달라고서 지선나게 타당님에 선제 미네베 양엘렌데베 살라마샤게 봐도 개와는 양엘레메다 왔던 쇼 제라도요 고송도에 된데 남라 사다 추다 메다 롱은네베 마시 디스심제는 박도 매워서지 때마 쇼소 때마 주네겐 다소 심제는 저다 두문우도 말로서 자도 수다는 데인데 소하 예다르마 히드로 기도 땡게다도 가도 하야 왔다 땡게도 마샤마나이 그래서 ramse session 제가 홍보라 남아른지 속에 타고에 따라 따위면 구수죠 시대바도 땜바로 쇼소서 민교를 먹고 이 다시 연락주죠 송거 타데되면 도기를 개별 구성도기 다시 쇼 팬데존에 땜바 다시 땡지기보 탐죠 요즘거나 되긴 주면 상계 땜바다 개교 제 간레라베 거베 신간에 팬다대와 말은 주면 제라스와 땡지 샤베 시대바도 땡교로 제 다소 남기 최단 템베도 치다 320로 내려가서 봐도 냐브라시바치 라도 서 원토치는 안 되죠. 어야. 오케이. 굿나잇. 다스는 잘 나러나.